Well, I was going to say good evening, everybody, but it's good morning. It's something like 12:45 in the morning. Frank Fear here with good buddy David Gorby. We like to say, we want to come into the post game smiling. It looked like we might, and then the interception at the end, and then the reversal of the call. At any rate, but Dave, thanks for being here. My problem is I can't sleep after a game like that, and now I'm not going to be able to sleep after this post game show. So I'll probably get to bed about 3 in the morning. But thanks for hanging in there. Your thoughts about the game?
Well, just a common uh, theme. Defense struggles to just get stops. They make, the run defense isn't all that bad. It's not like top five run stops or anything, but they're not bad. But defense just can't get off the field, um, and then there's times that the offense looks like they're the best in the nation, but they had their cold spurt. And unfortunately, their cold spurt was to start the game this evening, and so we were playing from behind all evening. So it was just a tough way to end that game. Um, knowing also careers out there. That was the last time we'll ever see Garrett Green in a Mountaineer uniform, and it's tough, but you know.
Yeah,
So.
I know exactly, and we were talking before we went on. So many patterns of the season we're seeing tonight, particularly in terms of two. One you already mentioned, and that is we have a quarter where we just can't do much, or we have a quarter where we look like world beaters, and then the next quarter we're not able to do anything. I was mentioning to Dave, I wrote down the first 18 plays, West Virginia. We had 49 yards for 2.7 yards per play. And
Mm-hmm.
as Dave mentioned, Garrett wasn't running. And then that was the first quarter and the first series in the second quarter. But by halftime, Memphis had 252 total yards. We had 251. The passing was almost even, 136 for Memphis, 126 for West Virginia. We had a rushing edge, and the time of possession was even at 15-15. And so it's that's one pattern, and the other pattern is the defense. After we fought back in the fourth quarter, and we said this, you got to watch the swing pass to the wide receivers and especially the running backs coming out of the backfield, and the guy goes 99 yards. And
Right.
so, it's just on one play, and boom, there we are. And so but let me say this and see if you agree or disagree. We said in the pregame show and also our Wednesday show, it was tough to analyze Memphis because of the caliber of schedule they play and the conference they're in. They only played one power team, Florida State. They had a terrible year, obviously. They beat Florida State, but so what? Everybody else pretty much did too. But I don't want to say this is going to sound like a sore loser. I don't want to say I wasn't impressed with Memphis. Really savvy quarterback, no question. Smart guy. I think he's going to be on an
Yep.
NFL roster. But having said that, um, you know, we if we come out in the first quarter and do what we're supposed to do, we win that game.
Well, the one thing, I might have to turn that light out. I'm not sure. I
Okay,
might.
do you want to do?
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that real quick. Hold on.
Okay, yeah. While you're doing that, we've got a WVU fan 13. This was the epitome of a Neil Brown coach team. No ill will against Brown. I understand that. But this shows how he lacked the ability to prep his team in the spring. The limited play sheet hurts. He lacked what Rich Rodriguez brings to the table. In fact, here's the end of that. And I think we've heard that. We've
Mhm.
heard that, and maybe I could put it a different way. The ills that this team suffered from were in full display tonight. I mean, and any rate, but go ahead. You were saying something.
No, you talk about that one struggle quarter, and usually it's not the first quarter. Like if you go back, one thing Neil would do, and And I know we would always get on the kneel because we always get the ball first. But for some reason, it always seems like he did script a first drive score. Like not saying every game, but majority of the games. And I'm not saying like 55%. I'm saying like around 75 to 80% of the time we would score on that first drive. And actually first quarter we would always be up like 7-0 or it'd be 7-7. And kind of how the second quarter would go tonight is how usually it went this year. It was the third quarters when we always came out bad. Like, tonight, other than the Albany game, this was the first time all season we outscored the opponent in the second half.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
and,
good point. Yeah. I was saying before we should have won that game. We know we didn't, but I'm looking at the stats here. We talked in the pregame show about watch out for Memphis. They have really high percentage third down, fourth down, 50%, and they were 6 for 11, third and fourth down. They didn't have any fourth down conversions. They were all third down, 6 for 11. But West Virginia was 8 for 16. 8 for 13 on third down, 2 for 3 on 4. We had almost 100 yards more total yards. We had more yards passing. We had more yards rushing. We controlled Anderson, a 1,300-yard receiver. My God, it goes down. One last thing. We had the ball 5 minutes more.
I mean, if you told me Anderson was only going to have 70 yards of carrying the ball tonight, and you think he had about a 15-yard run there, right there, 2 minutes left in the ball game when we thought
That's right.
when we thought it was over. When he got that first down, I thought it, and you probably thought too that that's it. But of course they go miss a field goal, and then that happened at the end. But you tell me he only had 70 yards going into the I would have taken it hands down, but man, that quarterback didn't do anything fancy. He just did not make the stupid play. That was the key thing. Didn't make the stupid play. Like you said, he moved the chains. He moved the chains 50% of the time on third down. That's big.
And David mentioned to the fans what you said to me in terms of what he would do at the end of his runs versus what Garrett Green would do.
Just thinking of that. The play before the interception, Garrett Green slid, and I guess let's call that linebacker smart too for sliding into the game. But he would dive. He would dive and get that extra yard because when you dive, the play's not dead until you hit the ground. And Garrett Green slid. He would have had a first down, and then he wouldn't seem so jumpy right there. He thought he had to get a 20-yard pass there on that interception. That's just little small things that you gotta know. Just gotta know the situation.
Yeah. And they again, I want to be. I want to be respectful of Memphis because they've won 11 games, but they did pretty much the way we expected. We thought it would be a high-scoring game, and it would come down to our defense, and that's exactly what it was. And they have two, we said in the pregame show and last Wednesday, they have a trio of really good wideouts and a good tight end. And it was the two wideouts, Vancomcy and Taylor. They had 226 yards. And we talked in the pregame about the fact that this DeRozé doesn't do a lot of running, but he does catching. And today he had more yards rushing than catching, but together he had 70 yards. And but you're right. Anderson only had 22 yards catching and 70, most of it at end. It was amazing.
He scored on that jet sweep that I think we kind of got tired watching this year because Gallagher would he would only get a yard or two. And we'd be like, why do we keep running that? Well, he ran it, and I tell you what happened. We had a couple guys overrun their gap. So we had about like three, 4 guys in the same gap. And that's why he cut it up in the middle because I think it was Cutter. He overran his gap, didn't stay his gap. So he cut up the middle and then he scored on that jet sweep, But that was definitely a difference, and that's when Memphis was hitting on all gears in that
Yeah.
first half.
Well, as we said in the pregame show, and you were involved in that, uh, one of the things that Rich Rod has now that didn't have before, there wasn't the portal as we know it today, and it's clear that that portal money is going to have to go behind good defensive backs. We need defensive backs because that was the pattern of the season. We saw it. We saw it in the Baylor game. We saw it in the Iowa State game. We saw it in the Kansas State game. We saw it, Texas Tech at the end of the year. We saw it tonight. It's
They
that
they
boom.
they
Just
had their one blunder on that. The Hannigan was rolling out, and he faked that screen, and the guy that goes and he fakes that block on the screen, and he just shoots up the sideline.
yeah,
Um, both our guys bit on the screen, and I don't know why, because it's not like they ran that. I don't really remember them running that play like that at all during the game, and we bit on that the very first time.
yeah,
That
uh,
was on
yeah,
that play that went down to the 1 yard line. That when the commentator said that was the longest receiving play all
yeah,
year long, not to score.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Trotter wasn't hurt. He transferred. He's on the portal,
he,
and
he he's already announced that he's Missouri.
yep,
Um, and
yep,
that's why Cutter got the start tonight. So I did see Carrico in there a little bit, but Lathan was in there a lot more. Lathan was in there a lot more than Carrico on the snap counts. And I'm not keeping track of snap counts.
yeah.
I'm watching the game.
That's right. Yeah, this is interesting. The WVU fan 13 over and under on portal transfers. I think out of loyalty to Neil Brown, the players did not. Only 5 players are in the portal. One's already committed to another school, as Dave said. But they may go this week. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
go ahead.
So go ahead. No, I'm finished.
I was just going to say that was one of the things why Ren Baker wanted to play this real early bowl game. Obviously, we could have gotten into another bowl, but he wanted to get in this early bowl game just so I think he knew the team, like most of the team would still play. We wouldn't have a Marshall incident, but he knew then it would give the new coach, we didn't know who that was going to be. He was still in that process, give him time to reevaluate who's still here, who he needs to go get, and just that part of the process. But that was the key reason why we played in a bowl game this early. So
Yeah. Do you feel there may be many transfers? We were talking about this in the pregame show, and it's too easy, I think, for us to particularize. And what I mean by that's Rich Rod wants his own guys, but this. We're fans. We see it happen at other schools. When there's a coach that comes in and a coach has been let go, that the new coach replaces, you see an overhaul of the roster, and that's especially the case now with the portal. And so I think we're going to see that. And the question, let me see if I can find it up here, that Lance brought up. I put it up, but I'll put it up again. I don't know the number, if it's 2 or 3 or more, but he will evaluate, as all coaches do, which players best have the temperament and the physicality and the ability to fit his approach, his philosophy, and his schemes. And my guess is, and I think probably from what I've read tonight, a number of folks that are watching tonight would say the same thing. It's probably going to be a larger number than a smaller number. And what's really interesting, Dave, as we talked about it earlier tonight, pretty much, I think every single one of those freshman commits, incoming players, stuck with it. The question is, how many of them will stay with West Virginia now that Rich Rod is in place and it becomes clearer what Rich Rod is looking for in players? Because those were Neil Brown gets.
Yeah. So it was obviously crazy to think that we got 22. Well, it was 21, 22 signees on that. Um, and I don't know how many's coming in for the spring semester, so they're going to get their first dose early on, and they'll see if they want to stick or not, But um, it's just a difficult number to speculate how many is going to transfer out. I mean, it's going to have it's the nature of the game. It's just the nature of the game now. So
Yeah, and then you got the other piece too, is that this is not the only time of year when players can enter the portal. You got, I mean, if I were the head coach, I'd want to go through spring practice and use that real time as a way to sift and sort.
mhm.
Now, you may know the rule better than I do. Ben is making the point that Preston knocked that ball out before the interceptor's knee was down.
It's just
My
go ahead, go
well, I was
ahead.
going to say my understanding was as soon as the
Mhm.
player slides, he's considered a
It,
defenseless
he's
player.
he's giving himself up. I hate it. I like don't get me wrong. I hate it because
I do too.
we made it. We made it for the quarterbacks, and that's obviously that dude wasn't a quarterback that did that, but
Yeah,
literally like a yard sooner, the ball's out, and
yeah.
just how it is. But mhm.
Thanks, Gregory. That's very nice of you. Um, Trying to keep up with we got a lot of folks in here. This is another good question here. That again, WV fan has a lot of good comments. Everybody's got great comments tonight. Always do. Is do you keep a Chad Scott? He
Um,
did have a lot. What do you think about that?
so I've been reading, and this is I'm on I'm on the blue lot, and I'm gonna credit Vernon on there. It's not like I got inside sources, but he said, on this staff, I'm not gonna name any names, what he's been saying here or there, but there there's gonna be a couple guys retained on this staff. And I think how Vernon was kind of saying it's kind of to save a little bit, just a little bit of money on that end. And could be Scott. They could. I mean, I don't know. So I'm not gonna speculate. I'm not gonna like saying names. But that's how I've been kind of reading on this on who's like who might be on this staff. That there
Yeah,
will be a couple guys from this staff retained. So
yeah, yeah.
mm.
Of course, they got to fit. They got to fit in culturally to.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's always the case. But it's the challenge. The challenge with the staff is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And again, I don't mean to be critical, but one of the things, as we do with our Wednesday show, it's Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now, and we go back in time every week.
Hmm.
Tomorrow's show is going to be about the Peach Bowl team in 1969, and so when you go back and look at those teams, you not only look at the players, you look at the coaches.
Hmm.
And from my perspective, and you could say, well, who's he? And you could be right. Who's Frank Fear? When I look at a lot of those coaching staffs over the years, different head coaches, the quality of their assistant staffs, I think was much much higher than especially the group we have now. And that's going to sound cruel to say, but I've said this before. Going way back, the 1970 staff, Bobby Bowden's first year, he had about 8 assistants. Three are the head coach, and two of his assistants are in the. All three of them are in the College Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
College Football Hall of Fame, and so I think that's just something we need better assistant coaches. When you think of the guys that Nealon had
Well,
and the guys that Rich Rod had, my God.
Well, I think the money pool is going to be better for Rich's staff. I think I seen today that it's got to be like the not his salary because I know you seen his contract today. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
So I think his assistant pool, and this isn't for like assistant to assistant. This isn't support staff. This is for the 10 main assistants you get, and I think it's going to be like second or third in the Big 12. So so that's big.
Yeah.
One of the bigger money pools on that part.
And I think that Kayvon is bringing up a good point. That would have helped the Mountaineers in the at the end of the game with White in, but I thought it was a hamstring by the way he was acting and the way it looked. What about this? This is I mean everybody's asking this question, Dave.
Well, the one thing about it, Rod Smith has always been Rich Rod's OC quarterback coach. Always has. I'm not saying he's the guy calling the plays, but he's always been that right hand man for Rich Rod. So it's an interesting thing. I've seen hearsays on, Gibby might get Rod Smith to Marshall to be like, hey, do you want to finally call plays? And that'd be a little bit different nature for him. He might be ready to do that, but will Rod the question is Rod Smith going to leave Rich Rod?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we all know Rod Smith was one of his quarterbacks at Glenville State. So,
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Here's another one here too. What do you think about this? The tight end coach.
that's what I'm saying. That where I say that if we're going to keep two, you think of that. You're thinking of that connection right there.
That's
so,
right.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We're going to start hearing this tomorrow.
That's right.
We're gonna start. We're gonna start seeing players in the transfer portal. We're gonna start hearing, Rod that's trying to get out of the portal, announce some visits. We're going to hear about coaches hired now. I don't. Jacksonville State plays. They either play Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, this week. Yeah, they've got a.
But we're not going. I would not figure we'll hear any of the guys he's bringing up. We won't hear till after their game.
Yeah,
but we'll probably hear like who's going to be retained and who doesn't have, any other outside guys from not those two pools that we'll hear about. Obviously, I think the one spot is the defensive coordinator. He kind of said he was looking at two guys that thinks outside the box. So that's going to be interesting which one he gets out of those two guys. So.
Yep, I agree. Hate this loss for the seniors. They did play their tails off. Well, after the first quarter, yeah. It was just sleepwalking. But that's the pattern. No defense. That's the pattern all year long. Without Trotter, no question about that. By the way, guys, that as we always do, this is the link that brings you right into the studio if anybody wants to come in. We invite you to come in and see you and hear you that way. Let me see. I don't know exactly what Leo's saying thanks to, but it's nice for him.
He had the question about.
Oh,
what question do you have? He had a question.
I'm going up here. Oh, here he goes. That's it. Bring in Pat White. Yeah. They're coming in pretty fast. Thanks, Leo. Appreciate that very much. Let me see. Here's another one. Won't be retained. Oh, that's a good question, Nathan. I would most right.
I got one. I think one area we've been talking about that coach won't be retained.
Yeah. It's just it's.
That was also Neil's doing. That was Jordan Leslie's doing. He had he had an opportunity to bring where I'm trying to think of that guy who went to Troy. Good Lord, what was his name?
Oh,
I can picture him. I can't think of his name. But anyways, he was one of the secondary coaches, and he left. And Neil and Jordan decided to bring in a coach that was a D-line / defensive ends coach from Appalachian State, the Victor.
Yeah.
Well, man, I can't think of that. I'm looking it up right now. That's got to drive me.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll read this, and I Kevon, if I'm hopefully pronouncing your name correct. Yeah.
Dante Wright left.
Okay, very good. Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. That was a strategic error by Satterfield. He's got that quarterback, and even if they didn't make it on fourth down, then West Virginia's got to go the length of the field now, and the time's running down. And the odds of him making that field goal, they've struggled, was low. I was really surprised he kicked that field goal. It could have been blocked.
Yeah, I'm always like, man, just put the ball in your best player's hand. He hasn't messed up all night long.
That's
You
right.
know, it's kind of like going back to the Kansas game. I don't know why, and they ran like a zone read for Devin Neal, and not to take anything away from Devin Neal, but if I was Kansas against us, I'm running that option with Jalen Daniels. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the best player on that team, and
No question.
he was killing us on the option that day. I still cannot believe that they didn't do that against us on that last play for them,
Yeah.
and they forced the punt. But
Yeah.
another thing a lot of people probably forget that I think hurt us tonight was, and he had a great game, was Huddy dropping that touchdown
Oh my God.
with about 8 minutes left instead of us taking another 4 minutes off that clock. And if we would have had another 4 minutes to work with, just think of that.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
That's hidden things you don't think about.
That's right.
So
He had 11 receptions for 166 yards, and 15.1 average and 2 touchdowns. And the nice thing of tonight about Garrett Green is that he 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 receivers caught the ball. I mean, it's just so Gallagher had 5. Cole Taylor, who really started really slowly, ended up with 4. Preston Fox 3, CJ 2, and it was good to see Farmer in there.
We've heard all year. My bad on that. We've heard all year about Farmer, and and I'm thinking if Holgerson would have Farmer, he would have thought of ways to get Farmer the ball.
That's right.
And we really never did that. We kind of try to fit Farmer into the offense instead of trying to figure something out for him. I mean, you talk about how athletic he was. Gallagher, other than him catching that game-winning touchdown against Kansas, this was probably Gallagher's best game, and that's taken away from the fact that he didn't. That ball that should have been intercepted in the first half, he should have had. He
That's
didn't
right.
reach out for it, and that's another hidden thing. We could have been down there instead of kicking a field goal. We probably could have scored another touchdown before half. But yeah, he stepped up. Like after that, I thought he stepped up big, and he even took a hit there on the sideline. So, we'll see. We'll see if Gallagher's one of the guys that sticks around or not.
Well, for me, and this was stated by someone today, no matter who won tonight's game, it would be forgotten relatively quickly. What won't be forgotten is that West Virginia had a losing season. Ends up 6-7 after being 9-4 last year, and just like last year, losing that Houston game on the Hail Mary, this year having Pitt just convert so many late third and fourth downs to beat us up in Pitt at Pitt. It just, these games got away. And again, as I said at the beginning, just too many patterns. And most of the patterns, quite frankly, hurt us. They were negative patterns that's what a pattern is. It recurs. It's not a one-off.
So here's a stat Chris Anderson tweeted off Garrett Green's stats. He's the first WVU player to have 300 yards passing and 90 yards rushing.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. I mean, 7 carries for 95 yards.
That's 3/4. That's basically 3/4 of work right there.
Yep.
Like if we could have just had one drive in the first quarter, that would have been.
I know.
But it is what it is. There was another crazy stat that I don't know if they said it on the radio or what. I seen it on Twitter, and I'm sure it was Chris Anderson or it was someone. It was someone. It could have been Jed Drenning that tweeted it out. You talk about our history, and Garrett was going tonight for the second quarterback in our history to get a multiple bowl victory. Do you understand what I'm saying? We only have one quarterback in history that has multiple bowl wins.
Yeah.
And obviously, we know who. Fortunately, he went 4-0 in bowls.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
But you think about it, Major didn't win a bowl.
that's right.
Bolger didn't win a bowl game. Rashid didn't win a bowl game. I mean, so that's the ones I know that went to multiple bowl games. Now, I'm sure like Hostetler probably only went to maybe one, or did he go to two? I'm not even sure. So
Yeah. You see, this question's a good one, but I can't answer it. And I'll tell you, as a I'm retired now, but as an executive for a number of years, uh, you've got to think about what you want to accomplish,
mhm.
and who can help you do that, because that's what assistants do. And that means that in some cases, and I'll tell you what, sometimes I would say no to really more talented people because they didn't fit my scheme, so to speak. So it's really, and I haven't, I followed Rich Rod, but it's really from a distance, and so that's a great question. I just can't answer it, but maybe your thoughts on that.
Well, like I was saying before, what I've been reading, there's going to be a couple retained from this staff. Now it's not going to be that much because he's going to want to bring in his guys,
That's right.
and um, obviously, if we're just talking about, let's just talk about defense. Let's just talk
Yeah.
about defense. And there's one, two, three. We got four defensive coaches.
Yeah.
And the one area that I'm okay with on the defense is the defensive line.
Yeah.
That's Jackson. I still can't believe TJ Jackson made in the NIL period. I can't believe TJ Jackson stayed at Troy all those years. But I mean,
That's
other
right.
than TJ Jackson, I think Coach Jackson has done. I'm not saying we have any like first round studs, but you think of the last 2 years, his defensive line, and they've been solid. Last year he had like 8-9 guys. This year was a little bit less. He only had about 5 guys, and he was
Mhm.
working in a redshirt freshman. That's with losing Eddie V earlier in the year.
Oh, that hurt.
But I thought that unit is easily the best unit on the defense, and that's with having Trotter and Lathan and Carrico and those guys. I just think the defensive line was the most solid
Yeah, I agree.
on
Yeah,
that.
I agree. A lot of play on this question, Dave. Worst team, what's your answer? 24 22.
Well, what was the 22? Is that the team that beat both Oklahomas at the end of the year?
Boy, I got to go back.
Man.
Um, I think they did.
Hmm.
Let me see.
That was the JT Daniels year.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah, and I always felt he had some arm issues as the season.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
like as the season went, he got beat up. Um, something wasn't right because I mean, I remember in the pit game that dude was making throws that we hadn't seen Jared Dagey do, and,
yeah,
and but then but that was the year like Garrett Green started playing towards the end of the year. I remember. I remember us losing to Kansas in overtime. That was kind of like the Jalen Daniels show out game. We did beat Tech at Tech. We almost beat that TCU team from that year
yeah.
that went to the national championship.
We had that terrible opening loss to Pitt that year.
Yeah,
Oh,
that wasn't JT Daniels. That was
no.
Bryce Ford Wheaton. The ball went right through his hands.
Oh, that missed pass, the punting when we're up at midfield. I think it was 4th and 1. Those are the two plays from that game I remember. Yeah,
Mhm.
we lost. We lost. Then that terrible loss to Kansas when we had the game won, and then
Yeah.
it went into overtime and lost.
Mhm.
But right, We beat we were beaten by Texas, but we beat Oklahoma and we beat Oklahoma State. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
those 2 years kind of almost mirror each other. We lose a pit game that we should have won. Really, these three pit games that we played, we've dominated that game about 85% of the game, and they're 2-1 from it.
yeah,
That's the most sickening part. The one thing I like to see from the defense from next year, I hope we can create some turnovers.
yeah,
That's been and that's been a common theme these past. I'm not going to say 6 years because let's go back to Vic Koenig. I think the defense was okay when we had Vic that one year because our offense wasn't like click and play. It wasn't like how tonight, how we just kind of like show out. That offense that first year, they would just be kind of like, let's try to get a touchdown quarter goal. They just
yeah.
wasn't, um, explosive is the word. And I'm not saying our offense is so explosive this year, but we had times where we could really score like tonight.
Yeah, that's a good the question that's up there right now from WVU fan 13. I think, in my own opinion, is, and when I saw it, I think I think the schedule next year is tougher than uh, Obviously, we open with Robert Morris, but let me see. Yeah,
We got Ohio. We play at Ohio, then we have Pitt.
yeah, and we got to remember Iowa State lost to Ohio at Ohio
Yeah.
not long ago. Pitt, and then let me see. I thought I had the
So
whole
so
thing
we
here.
play Arizona State, BYU,
Hmm.
Houston, Kansas, and Central Florida on the road next year. We
Yeah,
do have Utah, Colorado, and Texas Tech and TCU coming home next year.
yeah,
So, is there going to be? Are we going to have a top 10 team next
no.
year in the league? I don't know. That was the one thing about this year. Not we had a couple good teams, but we didn't have any like
Hmm.
elite teams. And that's the question. And we just don't know because it's not like the old times where we say, oh well, we got 20 guys coming back. Like we got to, see who's here in the summer, and we'll figure it out. We'll kind of have a good idea then. You know, so.
Yeah, yeah. It just Kenny's thinking 8 to 10. I don't know. That's on the high side, I think. But again, we don't know who's going to be out on the field. I mean, the portal is going to be so critical this year. So it
Well,
always is.
you think Arizona State that wasn't that quarterback a freshman this year, Levitt?
Levitt transferred from Michigan State when there was a coaching change. I think I don't know if he used up his eligibility last year. I'll have to look.
The
But
running backs done. Skeeterbo or Scott. He
Scatterboo. Yeah,
he was a senior.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm just looking at this. BYU, I think they're still young because that quarterback they had this year,
yeah.
his first start was against us last year.
That's right. I remember that.
Houston, I don't know. Obviously, Jalen Daniels has already said he's coming back for Kansas. I mean, he's a game changer.
Yep,
We'll see what Central Florida has. They lose the running back, but Scott Frost is back next year.
yep.
Obviously, you would think Utah has got to be better. Like, how many
Oh,
bad years does Utah have?
boy,
So
oh boy, they were just awful.
uh,
This is the point I was making, or an example of the point I was making.
mhm.
When you go back and look at those bowl games, you look at the Neyland teams, and the Blue Bonnet Bowl is one of them. The defense hit as hard as hell, and they were hustling their butts off. And it's when you watch the replay of the big win at Oklahoma, um, that essentially was Hotstetler's coming out party, and you look at people like Daryl Talley and the great defenses that the defensive coordinator Denny Brown, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. People maybe get tired. What made that those teams really good is that was a Bo Schembechler philosophy team. That's where Nealon came from. That's
Well,
where Brown came from.
well, think about this, and I'm not saying like, we got, Neil. We don't have any problems with the program. They're all good. They're obviously they still play for one another. You've seen that even though they lost tonight. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like I don't know if obviously the Texas Tech game was bad. That may have been one point that you thought they kind of lost the team a little bit, but you don't hear anything bad from the program. But you go back to Rich Rod's time. Think of the craziness he had with Pac-Man Jones out there. Now, you could talk about how crazy Pac-Man was, but Pac-Man was definitely a football player. You know what I'm saying? Like he would bring it. He would definitely bring it. You just kind of had to handle him a little bit. I'm sure Rich Rod had his way of handling him a little bit.
Yeah.
We just didn't have anybody like that out there.
They were hard nosed. I mean, a couple of weeks ago we showed a hit. West Turner had, and I can't remember the game or the player, but I mean, these guys were just absolutely hard nosed. And I've heard this more than once from players at multiple eras in the past. They said, even if we lost the game, we wanted the other team to know they were really, really playing this with, those guys, they felt it on Sunday and Monday.
Well, going back to Rich Rod, going back with Pac-Man, you think of his early secondary guys he had out there. He had Pac-Man, he had a Mike Lorello, he had Jamil Adai, he had Eric Wicks. He had some like nasty dudes out there. Like I said, they may sometimes get beat, but you was gonna have to earn it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Nothing against
Brian King. Yes, Brian King was another one.
Yeah, Hudson had a great game, but I think he may have been tripped, and I think he was losing his balance at the same time he was trying to catch the ball.
I'm telling you, it cost us 4 minutes. 4 minutes tonight.
I thought the same thing, and I said, "My God, I think we're going to score, but it's going to take time off the clock, and we're never going to get it back." The thing about this, and Kenny's bringing up a good point. It's this is going to sound obvious, but it really isn't. Most of the people most of the coaches that have come in, Nealon, for example, it was this was a big deal for him when he came in after he replaced Signetti in the '80 season, came from Michigan. Well, that's not the way it is for Rich Rod. Was here once. He's been at a variety of places, and so
he's been in every Power. I mean, he was in every Power 5 conference.
Yeah, that's right.
12. It's Power 4 now, but you think about that. He's been in every Power conference.
Yeah.
So
the point is that he's you're absolutely correct, because he was at Clemson too. But the thing with Rich Rod is that he fell from grace. I mean, the way he left West Virginia. I was at Michigan State when he was in Michigan, and I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm not. I was a college professor. I don't believe in revisionist history. What happened, and you might want to put happy talk on it. But to say that Rich Rod's experience, it was a disaster. Look at the stats. Arizona, that was a bad scene too at the end.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah, and so the point I'm making is it's a redemption thing for him.
Right.
He's had to work his way back. People, he was the offensive coordinator, I think, at Louisiana Monroe. He had a job before that. Then he got to Jackson State.
He was at Hawaii. He was
That's right.
You think the guy, okay, you think of like Mike Leach, Hal Mummy, they were the inventors of the air raid. Rich Rod's the inventor of the zone read. And
Yeah,
he was working as an analyst when he was like not, I mean, he may have been past his prime, but it wasn't like he was 75 years old. I mean, he's only 61 right now,
that's right.
and he
So
was
I,
working as an
yeah,
analyst.
yeah. The point I'm making is that he's got something to prove that
Yes.
someone like Brown at North Carolina didn't. Because a lot of these guys who do the reruns, take for example, why am I blanking on his name at
Bill Snyder.
UCF? Malzahn at
Oh, yeah, yeah.
UCF. Rich Rod's in a different place, and so we're getting a much better return show from Rich Rod because he's been on a redemption tour for the last 10 years, close
Like,
to 10 years.
like you said, he has a point to prove, and he's
Yep.
going to a place that he does not want to disappoint that place. Am I like
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying on that? Like it's not like these other guys they want like Mac Brown. He didn't want to go out there and lose or anything like that. But like Rich messed up, and he said that he is. It's not like he's coming out and say, "Hey Frank, I'm sorry," but he's been saying he
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah he's
Yeah.
been saying the word mistake, saying should have never left. He's wanting to prove himself.
Yeah.
And that might be, and people, and where I've read, they said that out Arizona, he lost that fire, but he doesn't have like that fire like he did back with us back in the the good days. But Jacksonville State, he found a
He
lot of
did.
he found a lot of that fire back is what
Mhm.
is why I've been reading. So
Yeah. And the thing is, you've done it, I've done it, and a lot of us have watched those games down with Jack State. I enjoyed watching them.
yeah, right. I watched their conference championship last week, and the one thing I enjoyed, they were what 28-3 at halftime, and
Yep.
I think we kind of got. It's not like Neil had been up 28-3 at halftime, but it seemed like when we were
Yeah.
up like that, we win the game 38-28.
That's right.
He went out there, kept the throat on the gas pedal, and won 52-12. So
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
uh,
Here's Andrew is saying this is neat. That was a hell of a pass and a hell of a catch.
yeah, yeah.
Just
Huddy has made. I mean, to have a bad drop like he did tonight, that
oh
kid
yeah.
that makes tough catches. I mean, he can catch the
Yeah.
ball. So
Ben's right. Yeah, just didn't do enough defensively.
mhm.
Um, yeah. Yeah. Woke up just when the game was final. What a disastrous 6 years. Yeah, it's just, it's interesting because their expectations are much higher now.
Mhm.
If you look at, you look at Neil Brown's record, it's like one or two games over 500. There was an era in football where, people wouldn't lose their jobs, but when you got Signetti going to Indiana and taking a dog and
Right.
making, my God.
It's a whole new era, and I go back to the Dion. I go back to
Yeah,
Dion in Colorado, and I know they went three and
sure.
nine last year, but you see how much money is coming in there, and the thing
Oh,
about Dion, you're either going to hate him or you're going to love him, but
that's right.
you're going to pay attention to him, and like I pay attention to Colorado, and I kind of like to be like that. I
Sure.
hope people get sick of Rich Rod being on the Pat McAfee show every week. So
Yeah, I think that, and I think Kenny's got a great point here. When the winter starts, all will be forgiven.
mhm,
You're absolutely correct, and I've had a couple of side conversations with people about that. As well as I, and we all do. What's the fuel of major college sports? It's the big money, and
yeah,
it's the media, and it's connected. And I think that what Pat McAfee is trying to do, my
mhm,
guess, is he could have picked anybody. He picked Aaron Rodgers to be on his show every week, right?
yeah,
And
Right.
how many
I
times?
don't, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm a Bears fan, so I don't like Aaron Rodgers, but I pay attention to what Aaron Rodgers does because I don't like
Yeah, yeah. But how many times did Aaron Rodgers say something on the Pat McAfee show that made headlines? And so I think, I really think this. If I could ask Pat McAfee one question, it would be, are you trying to make the Mountaineers America's team? Because I think that's what he's trying to do.
If
Because
it,
otherwise, he could be accused of being a homer. Everybody graduated from someplace.
mhm.
So why do you have your coach up there? I think he's really trying to do that.
if
And
it, if it
it's
brings in money, if it brings in, man, we need it because
yeah.
if we do the same old thing, we're going to be behind the 8 ball every single time. So
Huh. Well, I don't know. It'd be interesting on this because you know what? Uh, we thought he might go. Neil might go back to his alma mater, and they hired was the Rutgers, I think, defensive coordinator. I think it was Rutgers, who
Oh,
was the head coach at Maine.
or
Then we
yeah.
then we thought Charlotte, and then he didn't get the Charlotte job. They hired, I think, an OC somewhere. No, they hired the Ohio coach.
You know, um, the thing about Wake, it's an interesting place. Like you go to Wake, obviously that coach had been there for a number of years, and he had a couple good years, but then he's obviously had not a lot of good years.
Yeah,
But the thing about Wake, you're in a state like North Carolina, which has players that you can get to come there.
yeah,
There's enough
yeah,
around. Like obviously you got to battle UNC, you got to battle NC
yeah,
State, but there's enough players in that area that you can get to come there, and
yeah.
you don't have to
No,
have.
yeah, he didn't get the Charlotte job too. I heard he withdrew,
Yeah.
but he's already been an OC. To
Mhm.
be able to leave West Virginia and grab a power head coaching job, I would think more of a G. I thought there was a chance at Massachusetts, but it was the fact that the guy they hired had been the main coach, and so he
Mhm.
knows the region for recruiting.
Yeah.
Good question here. This is a question not just for tonight, but probably the last 2 years.
I mean, how Garrett was playing tonight, other than the first quarter, how Garrett was playing tonight. What would you done that? I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, I just take it back to our thing was to run the ball. Obviously, tonight we passed it, but Garrett's legs is what gets Garrett going, and it finally happened the second quarter. And I was telling Frank earlier, it wasn't even the touchdown run. He finally had about a 3 yard carry early in the
that's
second
right.
quarter, and that finally got him going because he missed. If you remember, he missed Huddy on an easy slant pass in the first quarter. Easy, like he knew, like they had 8 guys coming, and he had man to man on it and missed them all. It was only like a 4 yard route.
Yeah. Well, to the question and Kenny's question, and not Kenny's question, but HR Pick and stuff, and now Island Boy 23. Brown took the position that you don't lose your starting job by way of injury. So
I,
Nico was relegated, and he said in many of his at least two press conferences I can remember. He said we'll accord the same thing to Nico when he becomes a starter. Well, Nick
like
Brown's not here now, so
I'm just and don't get me wrong. I know we won the Cincinnati game, and I know we won the Arizona game, and Nico was starting those games, and he had a controlled passing game a little bit. He did have that one interception against Cincinnati, but like our run game was not like efficient. Like I just remember Jaheim had that one long run against Arizona, and then
hmm
after that, I don't really remember much of the running game being anything like, oh my goodness, those other 2 games. I think that's why we got him back in there for the Baylor game. If you think, um, you know, we would. I don't think we would have kept up with Baylor if we would have had Nico. And we had a chance. We were right there in the third quarter, and we were down there to score, and we just didn't finish the drives. We
That's
went.
right.
If you remember, my aunt we like flipped our play calling from like 65 run, 35 pass in the first half, and we went 65 pass and 35 run in that third quarter against Baylor. I don't know why we did that.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
mhm,
Something will happen.
mhm.
Um, yeah, could be Mountain West. The only issue
Hey,
is familiarity with the recruiting.
did you see where they're trying to get Northern Illinois to join for football only? Mountain West.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised. That's I'm familiar with, having lived in Michigan all those years. That is a football school, really. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not surprising. The only problem is the attendance is really, really spotty at NIU. That's the thing, that you're not going to
So
get to.
what is NIU adjacent to Chicago? Like how close is it to the city?
It's a train ride to the west, to Kalb. It's in the suburbs. I'm not sure how long it takes. I can't remember. I've done it. Maybe half an hour
Mm-hmm.
from DeKalb to Midtown Chicago.
Yeah.
People commute all the time, so it's not that. It's many people see it as sort of the public University of Chicago because you've got University of Chicago's private, Northwestern's private.
Yeah, yeah. You would think how tough it is to get in the Northwestern. They would get some. They would be able to get some basketball players in there, Northern Illinois, a little bit. But I guess I'm wrong. So.
Yeah, yeah. Neil Brown's never going to be able to live down that statement about the tailgate. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The weather was nice. Yeah. See, here we go. And see, now it's being eaten up. That's, yeah, Neil. I'm surprised Neil's not listening to us tonight. He could make some
Oh, man.
comments, but
Yeah,
he's
I
not.
get him on the show. Shoot, I'm
Yeah,
sure our
yeah. I tell you.
go flying. Oh,
Yeah,
that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, the thing that's so disappointing, and you can't laugh at it, is that um, we finished last year at this time. We were celebrating that bowl win over North Carolina, finishing at 9-4. The recruiting looked good. The portal was good. We moved up the ranks. Freshman recruiting, incoming recruiting, and all of a sudden, the bottom of the barrel just falls out, and that's so disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm just looking at Twitter right now. See what if anything coming out. Nope, I don't see anything. Okay.
Yeah, Kenny, we talked about that earlier. We think one or two of the current staff
Mm-hmm.
probably will be, and Dave made a good point, and that is, we know some of the coaches from Jack State are going to follow, but they haven't played their bowl games, so we got to wait until that's over.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Rod Smith is the interim coach for them for
yeah,
the bowl game. So
yeah.
we'll find out.
What do you think about this one?
I mean, I think the getting the ball first is what has drove a lot of people crazy. His explanation was he thought it gives you an extra possession. Now I'm not gonna get into all that because I don't analyze like that, but I thought he did it because of how successful his first drives are. Like I've said before, of us scoring on them, and he wanted to play ahead. I thought that would have been his reasoning, but he said that wasn't his reasoning. So
Yeah, that's a good one with Owen Schmidt.
right,
It may be true. Anyway, yeah, yeah. It, I don't know. It, uh, it's just you wanted it to be so much more than what it was, and after a while, you couldn't keep on hoping. Hope was elusive, and it was laughing at you, and the vitriol, the negativity that got very personal about Brown. People just didn't like him.
mm-hmm.
And what I would start doing is I'd sort of be half listening to him at his press conference, and I'd be reading all the comments that people were making, And it's just he ended up to be a coach that people love to hate, and that's not that you can't build on that. You just even with a win, you can't. And then what happens is you get a big win at Oklahoma State, and then you lay an egg, and it's like a stock that may have a bounce up a couple days up, but it's inevitably is going down, and it had to come to an end. Um, just had to. Yeah, yeah. I don't think fans will give up on Rich Rodriguez. I think those folks have already given up on him. They don't like him either because they won't forgive him or they don't like his character. Um, yeah, I think the rest of us, you're absolutely correct, Ben. It's going to take some time to get all the pieces in order. I
Uh,
will go ahead.
you go ahead. I'll say
Uh,
that when you get done.
although I will say this, and this is the reality that Dave was talking about. Arizona State was picked by a lot of magazines to be last in the Big 12 this year. And so when you got a team that no one was paying any attention to, winning big, really big, going to the playoff, and you got Indiana that was not successful, a new coach comes in and they're going to the playoff. The expectations for Rich Rod to do something similar to that, the expectations are going to be there, even though they may not be realistic. Uh, so that's my point.
Uh, Ben here is talking about Castile and not having Castile around, and I was going. Was he still like a analyst on this team? I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, look it up. Yeah, I we were talking about that earlier, and someone said that his name ever came up. He seems to have either retired or
So the I seen. I don't think he's on the staff. He analyst was like the last thing he did. So I think it was between the transition of when they were FCS to FBS at Jack State. So I guess Castile maybe wasn't feeling like he they wanted him around. But anyways, he went down to Jack State,
yeah,
and I'm not saying he went down there and called plays and all that, but he kind of like went in there and structured, kind of worked with the defensive coaches to talk about how to structure and the type of kids and like you know what I'm saying, like to kind of help that defense out a little bit. I'm not saying he took an official role at Jack State, but
hmm
I think Rich Rod had him come down there, and I think it was between the transition of them FCS to FBS. I
yeah,
think I think that's what I read. So he might have cast it, and it's just like um, if you've been listening to Rich Rod this past week, it's not like the old days where you just have 10 assistants. Like you got
yeah,
you basically got 10 assistants, then you got like 10 assistants to the
yeah.
assistants, and then you got like support staff. I mean,
That's right.
it's not like you're just him to 10 people. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Castile on the support staff. Let's say that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. WVU fan 13, because of the system. It's yeah. The expectations are going to be there. Um, let me see here. I want to get Kenny up here. Um,
That
that
that's a concern right there too. You hear about the TCU.
yeah.
Uh, Obviously, I haven't really kept up since probably the weekend. But Ren was down at the bowl game doing his job, obviously. So I think we got an AD that gets it. So
Yeah,
that's my
he's you
opinion.
you look at the picks he's made, the two basketball coaches, the
True, I think.
volleyball. I was going to say the volleyball coach did not have a good year this year, but she's a pedigree, um, Jen. So I think that but look, TCU. One of the things that TCU doesn't struggle with is money. They have tons of it.
Right.
So and that's his stomping ground. So I think that WS Wager 23 is right. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see an influx.
Yeah, you've seen a number of not like Marshall, but you've seen a good handful of players, especially defensive players, D backs and linebackers in the portal already from Jack State. And I'm not saying backups; I'm saying guys that played. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's definitely there. I did see one of his freshman receiver that had like 600 or 700 yards is in the portal now too. So
Yeah.
obviously, we probably wouldn't mind seeing him come up here.
Yeah. Timothy, that name comes up a lot. There's a relationship there
I
with
mean,
Rich Rod.
right? I mean, we're going to have that connection. So definitely a name to see. And like I said, we're going to start hearing stuff tomorrow morning. And I'm not saying that the coaches is going to be the very first thing we hear. Maybe it is. I think defensive coordinator is what I'm really interested in. But we're going to start hearing kids getting in the portal and kids that Rod's got to try to get visit from the portal to come up here. So it's definitely got to be interesting. But it's got to start tomorrow. The talk's got
Yeah.
to start tomorrow.
Yeah. I'd say no on this. I don't think that Garrett Green is.
No.
No, yeah. The other thing about the assistant coaches things, you could have an over and under and how many trickets are going to be on the staff
Right.
because God,
I mean, you got three right there. Obviously Rick Trickett was still on his staff down at Jack State. Is he going to bring Rick to be the O-line guy up here? But then also, Travis doesn't have a job right now. He
that's
got
right.
as the OC. They were scoring 30 points a game, and
Yeah,
he has one game where they score 7 points. And I think Beck from Coastal was feeling a little heat because Coastal Carolina doesn't lose ball games, and I
no,
think
they
they
didn't have a.
lost a couple in a row, even though one
Yeah,
that they scored 30 points in.
yeah,
He let him
you're
go
right.
after the game. He scored 7 points in.
Yeah,
And it was Travis's first year calling plays, wasn't it?
yeah,
Uh,
yes, I think so. Yeah, we had Rick on about a month ago,
mhm,
just before his son got fired. Yeah,
mhm.
WVU fan 13 has a good point here. It obviously does need to be controlled, but you never hear any movement to get it better. The NCAA has the Big Ten and the SEC have essentially replaced or at least limited uh, what the NCAA can do, and short of regulation, which I don't think is going to happen. NCAA rolled the dice on this, but people in Washington have a heck of a lot more important things to focus on than portal regulations. Even though a number of people like Joe Manchin and Tuberville and others advance bills, they
Mhm.
never went anywhere. So
I mean, you just think of, I mean, I know they're quoting Marshall, but think of um, the backup quarterback at Penn State. They're in the playoffs, and I know he's a backup. He's a backup to Drew Aller, but he's in the game plan. Like, he plays snaps during the game. Like, it's not like he don't play snaps. And he decided to enter the transfer portal instead of playing in the playoffs for his team to go to the national
yeah,
championship. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, Ben. We got a Wild West situation here, and sometimes what happens is the hombres are happier when it's just an open environment and you just deal with it. I will. The one thing I think is going to have to be fixed though, because too many people are complaining about it, is this portal that's open right now during bowl season.
Mhm.
And Rich Rod talked about it at halftime. I think he's right. I don't know about this one either. Um,
So I man,
you're close to it.
so so listen. I remember 98 or 97. It was like did we have like a handshake deal with Marshall? We played that one ball game with him.
Yeah,
And then after there was no 4 year, we didn't play another 3 years, and we won the ball game. Like I still remember the ran you, and the guy's talking about Randy Moss. He's not talking about Amos Zaraway having 200 yards in that game. But anyways, and then I remember, the series in the 2000s that Mansion actually helped put together.
That's right.
And we were paying Marshall to get on a bus to come up to Morgantown a lot more than we were flying UNLV to come across the country. I mean, that's what that was the whole take on that. Like it was about money then, and like I think we were giving Marshall like $1 million in 2006, 2007. Like, what would that number be now? And like I said, it was cheaper to put UNLV on a plane to come across the country playing. Like, so
that's right.
What, like, I think that's why we didn't like that deal on that before. I was reading on the, it was about the time we kind of signed that thing with the UVA series deal, and that thing we're getting a couple $1 million each game for that. UAB got paid $1.8 million to go play Arkansas this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's not across the country. That's one state over. So are we going to pay Marshall $1.8 million to come play?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Where Wren has said that we have a revenue problem right now.
Yeah. And it, the thing is that, I think it's less likely than more likely. And I think Rich Rod is already, he doesn't make the schedule, but he said, we've got great, I think it's a loose quote. We've got bigger things to think about than what's happening in Huntington. So I'm looking at the clock, and it's we've been at it for about an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, time it goes. I think Ben's right. They'll be in good shape. Tony, although I will say, and people have said this too, something's in the water down there. There are too many things going on administratively with football. You had this explosion this year. It happened before with previous coaches. You hate to see that. People aren't on the same page. Huff left because he left in a huff. They couldn't agree on a contract. Evidently didn't want him, and he's not the first person that happened to. So wish nothing but well for Marshall, but I think there's some so anyway, let me just say this as we round third and head for home, to use a baseball analogy.
WV13 right there,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. And it doesn't do anything for your national profile. And he said multiple times, we want to win a national championship, and beating Marshall is just it's not going to do it. And so probably less likely. We have our regular Wednesday show. We're doing 3 shows in 2 days. So if anybody's interested, tomorrow we're going to do the 55th celebration of the 1969 Peach Bowl with some of the key players from back then. And also one of the sons of a coach, because just about all the I think all the coaches are gone except one from that team. And they're in their 90s. So that's at 7:00 on this channel, Voice of College Football, West Virginia, the Voice of College Football. And before we leave, we have the duty, as they say, to close off with our sponsor, Bullock's Distillery in Charleston. And, this is the holiday. That's a headline. Holiday. And there is a thing called West Virginia bourbon. And Ty Bullock, I think, makes an outstanding bourbon, no matter whether it's West Virginia based or Kentucky. It's just great. And so Ty's been sponsoring the show. I'm going to run a short commercial here, and would encourage anybody looking for Christmas presents, holiday presents, to go to, if you're in Charleston, to go to his shop. We'll show it in a second, or go to your local liquor store. If you do that kind of thing and pick it up, it's just super. Let me run it here, and then we'll be back and close off the show.
Thanks for having me on today to chat with you a little bit about the Bullock Distillery. We're a small craft distillery located in Charleston, West Virginia, but we get all of our grains from Mason County, West Virginia, a little place called Yager Farms, and we get all of our water from Greenbrier County. We got a little family farm down there that we cart up about 1,200 gallons per month, and that's what we use to make all of our spirits with, and I think that's what sets us apart. And so while we do go out and we source some of the best barrels that we can from other distilleries and other states, we make all of our own whiskeys in house as well that we're aging, and yeah, we're really proud of how we've grown our company. And you can find us in most liquor stores around the state, and if we're not there, give us a request. Talk to the manager, see if they'll be interested in carrying our products and try a real unique taste of West Virginia. I encourage everybody to come pay us a visit in the Elk City Historic District of Charleston, West Virginia, and come take a tour and do a sample with us and hear more about our story.
Ty's a good guy too. Gotten to know him, just a super person. And let me see, a couple of other, as we were showing that it came in. Yeah, that's right. We've always had difficulty during the Brown era of doing that. Thank you very much, Ben. We appreciate it. Everybody who was here tonight, we appreciate it so much. Thank you, Kavan, for being here. Thank you very much. Great show. And WVU Fan 13, you helped make it a great show. Nice guys, great show. Thanks, Kenny. Your comments are always appreciated. And I'll tell you what, I always feel like I'm smarter, Dave, after listening to you. I mean, you do your research, you do your reading. You're really great with not only the stats but other issues surrounding the game, which we need, because you know as well as I, there's so much babble that you can get distracted. Yeah, it's just, but we really appreciate the detail you put into it and the preparation, and we want to have you back. Although it would have to wait until next year because this is it. We've run the circuit. We've done all the pre games and post games. The season's over. And you know what? The same thing happens every year. Now the long wait until kickoff seems like 17 years. And then once the season gets here, it feels like 5 minutes. It goes bang, bang, bang. And then every year it's like that. But we'll have plenty to talk about. And we look forward to working with you again, Dave. Thanks for being here.
Hey, just thanks for the invite, Frank. Like I said, I always enjoy talking with you. And I can't believe we've been on for an hour and 20 minutes tonight.
Yeah, we have. And both of us wish our buddy Greg Christ the best. He's been under the weather significantly since Thanksgiving. And we're going to be off on our Wednesday show after tomorrow because Christmas and New Year's fall on a Wednesday. We'll be back on January 8th, and we certainly hope that Greg Christ, because we're on every Wednesday night, Mountaineer Locker Room, then and now. We certainly hope he'll be back with us. And Dave, let me just extend an invite right now. We'd like to have you on early after the first of the year to talk about your sense of the coaching selections, where, the portal situation. And it'll be interesting to see how many of these high school kids stick with it, because there'll be conversations. And some of these kids I'm sure they're going to reopen their I'll just predict that. Well, and the thing is, thank you very much, Kenny, and that is in the works. We won't. Let me put it this way: this is a football network, and so we'll be expanding our footprint through the New River Network. We should have already started it, but because Greg has not been able to be with us, we delayed that. And we're going to be we're working with Darren McGuffin, who does a great job. That you co-hosted a show, Dave. You know that.
Yeah, so, I would go ahead and say New River Network. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button over there, so you start getting updates on there. We show local high school games on the New River Network, and then a couple other local things. But like I said, Frank's been working on getting on shows put on there. So
Yeah, and the nice thing too is if you live in South Central West Virginia,
yeah,
they're on 2 channels on Optimum Cable,
Mhm.
and they're also on Roku, which you can get anywhere. So,
yeah,
and that's going to give us the flexibility to do more on the basketball side, because this is the voice of college football. But thanks everybody. I wish we had a happier ending to the season, but it is what it is, and we appreciate your taking the time to be with us here in the early morning. Dave, thank you so much,
Awesome.
and we'll bid everybody a great evening and have a great tomorrow.